Guys, I am Ben Morrow, and we've been kind of preparing for the Apple Watch for about the past 6 months. And the whole goal has been to be ready to launch apps when the Apple Watch comes out. And so we've been learning Swift and things like Facebook Origami to learn how to do animations. And so over time we've kind of come up with what we can do, and just kind of go over what we know from Apple, and then maybe a few guesses about WatchKit. So as we get started, if you want to tweet tonight, you can tweet your app ideas for WatchKit, and you can tweet little tidbits that you learn. Maybe you'll learn something new. Use the hashtag WKH14, which stands for WatchKit Hack 14. The winner will get a book of their choice from Way Winderlick. So before I leave tonight, I'll pick a winner. So Apple kind of dropped a bomb on us in September. They announced that they're going to come out with actually 3 different kinds of watches. The first is the Apple Watch, and that has a sapphire display that was rumored about. The second is the Apple Watch Sport, which is made of a lighter weight aluminum material and has glass instead of a sapphire, and it'll be the cheapest model. And then the most expensive model will be the Apple Watch Edition, and that will be made of gold, actually, and come with a nice carrying case. And so the Sport should be $349, and the Apple Watch Edition that's made of gold is rumored to be all the way up to $4,000. So we'll see actually how that shakes out. So what about the hardware? Well, we know that it will have, let me get my presenter notes here. So we know that it will have a heart rate sensor, and that's the kind of 4 diodes that you see there on the back face. We know that the vibration motor is extremely precise, and it actually feels like a light tap on your wrist, so it's different than the vibration that your phone has. The person next to you won't be able to tell that it's going off, but you'll be able to feel it, and you can feel different parts of the back face and different kinds of vibrations. So, for example, if you use it for GPS directions, then you can feel the difference between a right turn and a left turn. So that should be really cool, especially if you're, say, riding a bicycle and you don't want to be looking down at the display while you're riding a bike. It's also got a scroll wheel on the side, and they call that the digital crown. So by spinning that, you can collect one-dimensional movement information and use it to zoom in on maps and images, and you can also scroll through lists. The interaction scheme, oh, there we go. Make sure we're right. Oh, sorry, I went one too far. There we go. Okay, so the interaction scheme. You can tap and swipe on the screen just like an iPhone, but there are a few notable additions. There's something called force touch, which is basically pressing down hard, and the watch screen is smart enough to know that you're depressing it harder than you normally would, and Apple uses that for things like popping up a contextual menu, so additional menu items, because the screen is small and so you only can be displaying a few items at any given time, so this will let you have more functionality. Or you could use it for something like a space-based shooter game, so you could tap to shoot a machine gun and hard press to fire a missile. You could swipe up from the bottom to reveal glances, and what glances are basically widgets that are single pages, and the kinds of glances you might find is like a weather widget or a stocks widget or maybe your next meeting. And then there's also actionable notifications. So when you receive a notification, it has configurable buttons. So if you, say, get a friend request from Facebook, then it would have like an add friend button and a not now button to dismiss it. So the watch comes in many different flavors. There's so many different kinds of bands and watch faces that people will really be able to customize it to their liking. And what I wanted to do today was kind of go over the 3 primary use cases that I see for it, and those are communication and health and actionable notifications or glances. So let's go ahead and start with the first, as communication. Now Apple is actually coming out with several apps that make use of new communication. And the reason why I'm so excited about communication is communication apps are the big ones. You know, that's Snapchat and WhatsApp. Those are the ones that get big if you can get a large user base all around the world. The first one we'll see is drawing. So you can actually engage with a friend and draw pictures, and they fade away over time. And this will be especially neat for people in the Asian subcontinent, because they can communicate with characters that represent entire words. In Japan, Korea, and China. And so it might actually be more useful for them than it will be for us, since we have to use Latin characters and can't really type. So the next one is digital touch, and so this is a kind of a quick way to tell someone that you're ready or something like that. So when you touch the screen, they can actually see on the screen where you touch, and they'll feel it on their wrist. It'll feel just like you're tapping their wrist. And so, if you wanted to leave a meeting or say you're ready for lunch, things like that, that would be a good use case for that. The next one is heartbeat, and that one you can actually share your real-time heart rate with another person. So that's kind of a very intimate form of communication, and why you might want to do that? Well, you could show them that you're excited, if your heartbeat is really fast, or if you just wanted to connect over long distance if you've been missing somebody. The next one is walkie-talkie. So for very quick back and forth voice communication, this is definitely a new thing for the watch that we haven't had on the iPhone. So just a reminder, tweet your app ideas and the tidbits that you learned tonight with that, and the winner will get a book of their choice from William Illick. So WKH14 is the hashtag. So that is it for the communication apps. Any ideas out there for a communication app right now?
Slap on the wrist app.
Slap on the wrist app. Okay, cool.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a microphone in the watch?
Yes, there is a microphone.
Does not say in that now. Just.
No. Yeah. There's no plugs on the watch to plug anything in. But
So I have
yes.
a question. What can have a pressure detection?
Yes.
Level? How many levels and a particular level?
That's a good question. I don't know if if it's kind of a gradient, like you can sample at all different levels, or if it's just hard press or not hard press.
Right. And if you can feel a different level, maybe have a better interesting idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are the gestures that are supported?
So the question is, what are the gestures that are supported? So you can do anything, and I assume you'll be able to use the same gesture recognizers that you do on the iPhone. But as they mentioned, pinching with 2 fingers is kind of hard to do on the screen. So in that case, you'd want to use the digital crown as a scroll wheel instead.
And so it has mic, but does it also play sound?
Yes. Yes. So it does play sound, and apparently the speaker is very good because they want to make it a very subtle form of communication. And so with the mic, for example, if you receive a text message, you can reply by voice dictation, and it will either transcribe it into text for you or just send it as a voice message to the person. Because iMessages in iOS 8 just added voice messages in addition to MMS. All right, so next up we've got health. And launching with the watch, there's 2 different apps. So one's called Activity and one's Workout. And with Activity, the one on the left, you can see that there's Move, Exercise, and Stand. And what those do is that they fill up over the course of the day as you do those different activities. And the way that it measures that is by using the Core Motion API to know when you're walking and how many steps you're taking, and are you running, are you cycling, are you driving in a car. So it can measure all of that and then report back. And in fact, I'm really excited to see what other people can do with the Core Motion API on the watch. I think it's a good way to coach yourself to be more active. I've been using Breeze for iPhone 5S and now the iPhone 6, and by seeing my steps, and it kind of customizes how many steps I should get per day based on my past history, and I have a feeling that that's what the activity on the watch is going to do as well, is kind of customize it for you. The workout app is the one on the right, and you use it for specific workouts. So when you go running, when you go walking or cycling specifically, you can kind of set a mileage goal and things like that, and you can earn achievements if you're completing those over time. And it also comes paired with iPhone companion app, and there you can kind of dig in to see more of your data over time. How are you doing? Are you completing your goal every day? That sort of thing. And in the lower left-hand corner, you can kind of see that the watch also provides a view of the graph over time and how many calories you're burning. So that's health. Any questions about health?
Is the watch actually have the sensor, or is it utilizing the M8 on the iPhone 5?
The watch actually has the core motion sensors too. The watch does not have GPS, so it communicates with the iPhone to get the GPS signal, and also uses the iPhone's Wi-Fi, for exact positioning. So for example, if you took your watch running without your iPhone, it could still track your movement and things like that, but it wouldn't be able to track your GPS location of the run.
Does the watch store that data, or does it just transmit it? How does that work?
So the watch definitely should be able to store data, and when we're thinking about how that's actually going to happen, with iOS 8, Apple released the new widgets for the notification center, or the Today view. So when you pull down, you can add new things inside there. And the way that they share data with the iPhone app is something called app groups. And so the speculation is that WatchKit will probably use app groups so that your iPhone app and the watch app can share data back and forth.
Does the watch have a body temperature sensor?
It does not have a body temperature sensor.
What's the autonomy?
So what they said is their goal for the first version of the Apple Watch is to make it last all day, and they anticipate that you'll charge it overnight. Now, it'll be interesting to see if different people have different use cases for it, because it is a really great platform to, say, wear overnight and track your sleep, and then wake you up in the morning. One of the Apple Watch engineers put on Twitter that he really liked it for waking up in the morning because it does gently tap his wrist, and he doesn't have to wake up his wife, or his kids with the alarm. So maybe you could, instead of doing that, maybe charge it while you're just sitting down at your computer or something like that. That way you don't have to charge it overnight.
Question, I know Bluetooth is on the watch, so maybe beacons are kind of a 4 minutes GPS solution. I'm sure it sends beacons. I don't know.
Yes, it should be able to work with iBeacons.
So related to that, do you have a coach mode where you can do a group activity where the coach can see everyone?
Yeah, so Apple hasn't announced any apps like that yet, but that would certainly be a cool one to build. The Nike app that Apple did talk about is more about like challenging your friends, but it would be cool to have a coach that's challenging, and then he can see all the progress for all the students.
We talk about calling 911 if it senses no heart.
I don't know about calling 911 if it senses no heart, but one of the cool things that Apple is doing with that is when you have it on and it can sense your heartbeat, that's actually how it's authenticated, so that I'm not sure how you'll log in. Maybe enter a PIN code, but once you've entered your PIN code and it stays on your wrist, it can sense your heartbeat. It knows that it's still you that's there. So then it's really easy to, say, do an Apple Pay transaction. You can just put your wrist up to the station, and it will charge your credit card without having to do any other kind of authentication, because it knows it hasn't left your wrist.
NFC.
Yes, it does have NFC.
How much data can it log before it forces you to save it? So let's say I want to write an app that helps me over a month. Can I pull that data from the watch, or do I have to go to the phone to pull data? I mean, how much data can it pull?
Yeah, so Apple hasn't announced how much storage it will have, but we can assume that it will probably, because it's got to have a version of iOS running on it, so it has to have a substantial amount. So maybe 8 gigabytes, and if that's the case, then it should be able to store a lot of just text data, no problem.
Basically, I'm thinking of a case where I don't want to take my phone to running, but I want to see if I ran more steps this week than last week or something.
Yeah, so it should definitely be able to store the data for the run, and when you should actually, if your app is using that, you should be syncing whatever you get into the HealthKit API, and that way you can also pull data from HealthKit. And HealthKit has some cool functions like summing up your steps over a week or over a month, and you can use that for free.
It's interesting you mentioned about paying. It's basically Apple Pay on your watch.
Yes, Apple Pay is on the watch. Okay. So the next one is actionable notifications. And what do those look like? Well, we've got kind of 3 examples that I want to talk through. The first one is an app that is actually showing you cooking directions. And so you can imagine that this is one of your glances. So how do you get to glances? You swipe up from the bottom of the phone, and you can see that there is a page indicator at the bottom of the screen. And it can walk you through, and maybe you can tap when you're done with this part of the recipe, and it will move on to the next part of the recipe. And you could then swipe the pages to go to your other ones. So we mentioned that weather and stocks will be there, and your next meeting for your calendar. And then, of course, all the apps that you can build can make glances from the iPhone app. So the next one is Lutron, and with Lutron, you can turn on and off the lights in your home, and you can also create different scenes. So, for example, you might have a Halloween or a Christmas setting, and you could transform the whole look of your phone, the whole look of your home, just from your watch. So that would be pretty cool. And then finally, all of the apps that people are going to build for WatchKit. And when Apple announced the watch, they announced a few partners that were already on board building apps. So I'll just kind of go over the ones here, and you see some of them on the screen there. But American Airlines will allow you to check in and get your ticket, and then also board the plane with a boarding pass. Starwood Hotels allows you to check in when you come into the hotel lobby, and then also allows you to open your hotel door by waving your watch in front of the door. And so that is using the NFC, the same thing as the Apple Pay. And Starwood is the only app right now that's going to be able to make use of NFC. So normal developers will probably have to wait until WWDC next year. City Mapper provides mass transit directions, so that's like train station directions, and it reminds you to get off at the right stop by tapping on your wrist, so that's going to be super useful. You'll never miss a train stop again. Pinterest is kind of a unique function for Pinterest. This wasn't expected, but it alerts you when you're near sites of interest that you've liked on Pinterest, and then gives you walking directions to them. So if I'm in San Francisco and I want to see the painted ladies' houses, when I go near them, Pinterest will pop up the picture of that and then give me directions to get there. BMW shows you the charge level of your car and the directions to where it was parked. So that's for their electric vehicle. You can see the charge level and then directions to where it was. And Major League Baseball shows the current sports scores and kind of updates from the games. Honeywell allows you to control the temperature in your home, so with a thermostat. Lutron, we already mentioned, control the lighting for your home, and Nike, we already mentioned, is challenging your friends to go for a run, and then seeing updates on that. So that's kind of the apps that Apple has announced. But the next thing that I want to talk about is, well, what cool ideas are people already thinking of? So one of the popular workouts on the App Store is called 7-Minute Workout. And it's basically interval training, and it walks you through, you start with jumping jacks, and it counts them, and then you have 30 seconds to the exercise and 10 seconds of rest, and then it walks you through more exercises. And the cool thing is that, since the watch is on your body, it can actually count your movements as you're doing them and walk you through the workout. It knows when it's time to move on to the next one, either by the reps or by the time. And then also healthcare. So you could use it as remote monitoring for someone that you don't want to be there physically. So, for example, if somebody doesn't move for an hour, especially an elderly person, you can send an emergency message to the family, and you can actually provide an audible signal. Message will be sent to your family if you don't walk around, and then they could get up and walk around. Yeah, and then you could also use Bluetooth and iBeacon to detect if a person leaves an area they shouldn't be in. So if it's an elderly person with Alzheimer's and you want to know if they go outside the house, then you could do that with the watch. So that's kind of the overview of the 3 ways that I can see using for the watch. And now I wanted to just kind of talk through more ideas that you guys have. Yep.
Is it without telling the time?
Yes. So Apple likes to say that they really were deferential to the time-honored tradition of telling time, and they consulted with a lot of different horologists, which is the technical term for people who care about time, and it's accurate to within milliseconds.
It's actually interesting that there's a whole other category of applications around timers and when is your next train coming to the station and all sorts of apps related to time. But
Yes, that's true.
Can you tell us more about the vibration effector? How do you get a left versus a right? Do they have 6 little prongs on the bottom?
That's a really good question. I don't know the details, but that's from Apple that they said that you can tell left versus right. And apparently, there's also a super soft tap versus, a harder shake. They didn't show the internals of they call it a taptic engine. They didn't show the internals of it.
On the video, when they presented this, it seemed like everybody was wearing it on the top of their wrist. Partly the bling effect, but when I wore a watch, I always wore it on the bottom. So instead of doing this, I put this way. Is that going to affect the sensor? Did they talk about that? You have to wear it particular.
They haven't talked about that, but I imagine actually that the heart rate sensor would work better if you wear it on the bottom of your wrist, because it is on the back of the watch face. And so the way that it works is it uses visible and infrared light to kind of see what your veins are doing. Yeah. And so, yeah, it probably would work better.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Can you watch video?
What'd you say?
Can you watch tracking videos from Facebook on the watch?
Yes, you should be able to watch video. So, as an example, Apple showed their Photos app, and you can get all of your favorited photos on the app and zoom into them, and so you should be able to watch video too.
Is that built-in camera to take picture?
What did you say?
Just built-in camera on the watch to take picture.
There is no built-in camera on the watch, but one cool thing that Apple showed is using the watch as a viewfinder for your iPhone. So, set your iPhone up far away, and then take a group picture by looking at your watch and pressing the button to snap the shutter.
So for older people, medicine is an incredible problem, right?
Yes.
6 times a day, and what to take and how many pills to take. So I presume there's capability.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't seen anybody working on a particular app for that, but I think that is a great idea. Especially you could provide an audible alert, time to take your medicine, or ask, did you take your medicine? And they could respond with their voice, yes or no. And then, that way you could make sure that they stay on track.
Use an iPhone app.
There's an iPhone app? Okay.
So one of the categories that I've been thinking of watch would be very valuable is, so if you put 2 things together. One is, think of we as a device.
Yeah.
Right? and what it can do. And I think of all virtual reality possible cases. You can literally, and this is one of the area I think is quite valuable, where you're just playing a game and you don't even know you watch it basically if you're tracking.
So I'll repeat what he said. He said that think of the Nintendo Wii and what that can do, and so you can imagine all the different kinds of gesture-based games that you could do with the watch. You could also imagine, going from one slide to the other. You just slide your wrist, and it reads that gesture. And so yeah, there's tons of virtual reality games you could invent.
I'm trying to get a sense for how complex they're going to let these apps be, especially at launch. For example, can we use OpenGL? Can we do arbitrary computations? How powerful is the processor? Would you actually write a game? That kind of thing.
That is a great question. There has been some speculation that this initial release of WatchKit, which we're hoping is tomorrow, because Apple said that they're going to release WatchKit in November, and Apple also said that all of their employees at headquarters have the whole week of Thanksgiving off. So if they're going to get it in November, they have to do it this week. But there's been some speculation that this initial release of WatchKit will only have the actual notifications and glances functionality, and so you couldn't write, the full-blown app for the home screen. That said, the glances that I've seen do look pretty complex, and I think you can have multiple buttons on them and things. So, maybe you could make kind of a small game that's within a glance. Apple might reject it because they say it's too complex or something, but maybe you could do it.
Actually, I think there's another category that's more niche.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything related to expression. Like there's been a lot of work in the controllerism area around creating music with gloves on your with the accelerometers on your wrist and so on. Now you just have the watch. You can wear one and create sounds and create stuff, draw in mid-air with your watch.
Yeah.
That would be some stuff.
Yeah. What's the instrument? A theremin, where you kind of use your hand to make a sound. So you could do the same thing.
You need
with the watch.
a static instrument.
Yeah.
There have been quite some work done around gloves,
Yeah.
To control musical instruments with your movements. Probably be easier and cheaper to do with a watch like that.
Yeah, so you can kind of conduct, but you're also making the music. Yeah.
I think it also can be any place where you keep a lot of social circumstances, also where the private conversation need to happen. So imagine an investor looking for a startup, a person looking for a job. So you could be in the same social setting, and I might be talking to you, and I immediately know, oh, you basically are looking for this, and perhaps I can provide that. So the watch can become that conduit without anybody else knowing.
Right.
That's
so
basically what happens.
I'll just repeat what he said. He said that imagine you're in close proximity with people that you want to meet, like an investor or a startup, or friends that are interested in the same topic. So, if you're in the same room or at the same event, then you could get to know each other through the watch notification. And one of the teams that we had an event up in the city where we were focused on kind of creating some cool apps for the watch, and one of them was this proximity-based thing, and it said the watches would light up blue, so then you know I'm looking for the person with the blue-colored watch.
So which sensor would you use?
Yeah, so you could use the GPS location with the phone, or you could use the proximity with the eye beacons.
I mean, the heartbeat. Heartbeat kind of is that kind of data. Also expose this kind of exposure to the programmer. So I think we can just the programmer on this heartbeat. I'm thinking of also generate some kind of music, or create a kind of the game space in terms of your heartbeat, and make like a horror game like things to kind of make it also synchronize all your current emotion.
Yes.
Is this kind of programmable?
Yes. So it should be programmable. I mean, perhaps not in the very first version of WatchKit, but by next summer, I think you will be able to do that.
I'm thinking of interesting scenario on this topic. I think it can create a very different kind of experience.
Yeah. And so just so everyone could hear what he said that you could create kind of music or a game based on the emotion that you're getting from the heartbeat. So the speculation right now is that it'll be tied to an iPhone app, just like it would be for a keyboard that you add in iOS 8. So you download the app from the store, and then you can install it a keyboard or a watch app. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, and maybe in a couple of years, then you'll be able to download directly to the watch, but probably initially it's through a phone app.
Do you think it'd be possible for two people on Facebook or LinkedIn to become translated into stuff or
Definitely.
So, senior citizens are notorious for not owning a smartphone, don't want to give up driving, don't want to tell others where they were. So could you gift this watch like same with a regular watch and be able to discreetly monitor?
Yes. Yes, you could do that. Now, the only problem with that right now is that the watch does need the phone for GPS coordinates and things, so they need to have an iPhone around them too.
So there is an industry that exists which retrofit old cars with GPS-based cars.
Yes.
So that at least you can monitor where they're. They're notorious for not buying phones and they think it's too expensive.
Can the watch be paired with other kind of devices, say a Mac or iPad?
So the question was, can the watch be paired with other kinds of devices, not just the iPhone? For example, a Mac or an iPad. And the answer to that should be yes. Apple has showed that the watch can do handoff. So you could read a mail message on your watch and then open it on your phone, iPad, or Mac, and reply to the mail message. Android probably not initially.
Another question that comes from that is that if it's possible to connect it with an iPad, would it be possible to connect it with an iPad and an iPhone? Because, for example, with a Pebble, it's not possible to connect two devices.
Yeah.
One, and then because if you get notification, you don't know which device.
So what would you want to do with connecting it to two different devices?
If I have an iPad and an iPhone, and there are some apps that are only on the iPad, and I get the notifications on the watch, and the same for the app.
You might want to pair with an earpiece at the same time.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah. I imagine that you will be able to do that because it should, be like an extension, use an app group, and so an iPad-specific app could, also have a watch app component to it.
But then it means you need to be able to control, to synchronize because the watch will be synchronized with the device to install the apps and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be able to synchronize with multiple devices.
I imagine it would be able to, but you're right, maybe not initially.
I think you were alluding to at the beginning. Is this going to be programmed with Swift, HTML5, Objective-C?
So definitely Swift. I mean, Apple is kind of all in on Swift. Probably Objective-C because that's actually probably what the current watch apps are written in because they wanted to get those out the door before Swift is finalized. So all those apps are probably Objective-C. HTML5, Apple has been opening up more and more towards it, and so now, for example, in iOS 8, you get the same JavaScript rendering engine that Safari uses, so apps are pretty performant. But as far as allowing that on the watch initially, I'm not sure.
So how about the background activity? Kind of not that power compared to the iPhone.
Yeah, so background activity will probably be really limited initially because of the battery life. They want to make sure that it lasts for the whole day.
That
so
is kind of background.
Right. I mean, you'll be able to play music, and still multitask and things, but that, I imagine that that's going to be really limited.
Not really a subtle question, but do you have any idea why they went for this traditional LCD screen instead of more efficient technologies like the one from Qualcomm? I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
The kind of color ink.
Yeah. No, I don't know why they made that decision, but you're right. I mean, I I imagine that this first version of the watch, will be quickly improved on, and by the next year it'll have a better screen and it'll have more health sensors.
And it's not just a better screen; it's also more power efficient.
More power efficient, yeah.
One day, especially for a watch that they say is going to be useful for tracking sleep and stuff like that,
right.
If you have to charge it every night, then it cuts all sorts of features away.
Exactly. Somebody back there? Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm not into sports, but I can imagine that you can use that track. You can use a golf swing.
Absolutely.
Pictures, pitch, and
yeah, so for people who didn't hear, she said that she could imagine an app that tracks a golf swing or a baseball pitch, so you could help people improve their form over time. Yeah, so you should be able to do kind of the same sort of stuff that you do with the accelerometer and the gyroscope in the phone. So those have gotten pretty precise over time. With the phone, right? So the watch, offers a new use case since it's on the wrist.
If you misplace your watch, is there a way to find it with your paired device somehow?
I don't know if it's going to be tied into Find My Device on iCloud. I would imagine that it would.
It doesn't have GPS.
Yeah, it doesn't have GPS, so it'll have to be in range of Bluetooth, probably something like that.
So then,
yeah.
5 minutes?
Yeah. Any final questions?
Does it have a built-in compass?
Good question. I would imagine yes, but I don't know about that for sure.
Does it come with an app that tells you that battery's about to die?
Yeah, you should be able to know the battery's about to die. I mean, but that's an interesting point because they don't have the status display on the top. So I don't know how they'll notify you. Yeah. Yes, yeah. So you should be able to build apps in Xcode and use the simulator to test your apps and install them on devices.
In this case of the proximity or the fist bump, what would be the method of exchange? Or if I wanted to exchange pictures?
Yeah, so you could use Bluetooth, and I am not a Bluetooth expert, but I think that with Bluetooth LE, then you can pair and things. So that's how you would probably do it. Because we won't be able to use NFC at first, but once we can use NFC, then that would be another mechanism. Yes.
What do you think of the adoption rate?
I think there's a lot of people that are excited about it because it's kind of the new hot thing, especially with fashion. So I think the adoption rate could be quite high. That said, the price is still really steep initially. So like when the iPhone first came out, it was $600, and a lot of people still bought it. But then over time, as the price came down, we'll have more and more regular people to buy it as well.
On that line, can we actually put here the people would sincerely buy this thing?
Oh yeah, let's do it. Who's gonna buy the Apple Watch when it comes out?
What price?
At $349.
Whatever.
Anything price.
I saw 25%.
All those guys, who's buying it just because you're a developer and you want to develop for it?
Okay, that takes away a third.
How many people are going to get it just because they work for a developer?
So the winner of the app ideas and tidbits you learned tonight, and they will get a book of their choice from Ray Winderlich, is Joshua. His Twitter handle is InvokeDynamic. And finally, this weekend, we have a workshop for WatchKit Code and Apple Watch design on November 22nd in the city from 4 to 7 p.m. And then the next day, we have an all-day hackathon at Hacker Dojo, so right next to here. And you can sign up for that at hackathon.watch. And I will post the notes and the video from tonight at happy.watch. And we've also got things like Swift Playgrounds and like a PSD to make mock-ups of the watch there as well. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Ben. So I'm just curious, is anyone wearing a watch tonight? Well, just any. I haven't worn a watch for years. I put this Pebble on tonight just because it was tonight. So what percentage has watches now? Oh, maybe 20 or a quarter. Well, so Ramin actually gave me this watch a couple of weeks ago. And I asked Ramin to give us some context and talk about some of the other watch platforms. Pebble, and there's this TV company that's TV manufacturer from Korea that's got a watch too, I think.
Give me a second to set up.
Oh, Josie, would you wave? Hi. So we have someone here from Apple who's hiring for the WatchKit team.
Please come see if you're interested.
They're hiring an infinite number of developers.
Very busy.
My name is Ramin, and I'm going to run this like a 12-step program. My name is Ramin, and I'm a watchaholic. So this is great. Apple Watch is great, but Tim asked me to give a talk about the other watches and end with the Apple Watch phenomenon. So kind of give you context for the history of it, maybe, and where things are going and where things have been, and then we'll end with some ideas about that, given the history of what has been done. So let's just jump in. So I thought maybe I'd start talking about the early days. One of the first watches was the Casio Data Bank, and it had 10 storage slots, and you could put 16 characters of text or numbers in it. Remember now, that means you could have a phone number in there, you could have names of people you met, and it was awesome. So 1983, some of you may not even have been born then. Just think about that. And then so actually, are you guys seeing? I'm sorry, I've got two screens here. The one on the left, okay. So this is the Casio Data Bank with a 10 display, right? So next came the Seiko, the RC1000. And this thing was awesome. It had an interface with the Apple computer, with Commodore Tandy. How many of you remember the Tandy? Some of you probably, people are old as me. But the best part, those who were asking about keyboards and maybe the Apple Watch, how it would interface with keyboards, consider this, right? It could go this way. And this thing was real. So next came the Samsung. So Samsung's been in the watch world for since day one. In 1999, this monstrosity, was an actual cell phone. You could talk. This is as Dick Tracy as you could get, right? So it was for real, and you can trust them because you see the little antenna sticking out over there that you have to wander around all day taking radiation. So next there was this long stretch of nothingness, and then next came the Fossil. And Fossil basically took the Palm PDA and stuck it into a watch, which was awesome, except that you had to use your finger to do a lot of tiny little things, right? But it was pretty styling. Yeah, you had you actually had to do a stylus that was even better for that. So this was the early days, right? No apps or anything. These were mostly just, you could do a few things like that. Huh? Is that what touch was?
This, I don't know. Yep. So, yeah? You could tap, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, because the old days, remember if the Palms all came with a little pen that came out. Remember those? Yeah. So Microsoft in 2004, big splash. These were watches that actually exchanged data with the internet over the FM radio bandwidth, the open spaces, right? And you could get things like live weather and sports scores and all kinds of cool stuff, right? And they tried so hard. It was interfaced with MSN Direct.
And they tried so hard to make it cool. They tried so hard, but oh boy, didn't sell any. Just didn't work out. So in 2009, Samsung moved on to a touchscreen. So this thing was actually a cell phone. It was a watch screen. It was an MP3 player. Voice recognition. This thing was amazing. It had storage on it. You could do all kinds of stuff. And didn't sell many, sadly. But the cell phone part was really cool. I remember these. Then came Alerta. Now Alerta, their only claim to fame is these guys went on to become Pebble, right? So I actually have one of these that they gave me, and I played with it for a while. I tried really hard to figure out what to do with it, but it synced with Android and BlackBerry mainly, and I really didn't want to go out and get a BlackBerry to find out how it worked. But you know, it's sitting in a box somewhere. I just didn't have room on my arm to wear it anymore. So the iPod Nano became a watch, you might recall. Kickstarter, its claim to fame were all those crazy watch bands that people were putting on Kickstarter to make your iPod Nano, because it had a touch screen, and you could have a watch was one of them, but it had a music player and all that kind of stuff. Remember these? These were like all these crazy things that they slid in your iPod Nano into and you made it a watch. And so this is Apple backing their way into the watch world. They probably didn't even think it would be used as a watch, but it became a huge industry. So of course people said, well, if that works, well, heck, we're going to do this. And so the Whim came about. Now the Whim was not a watch also, it wasn't sold as a watch. It was sold as a little square. And it happened you could also, it had little clasps that you could attach the watch band to it, but it was real full Android. Like they took Android and they squeezed it into this thing, and it had Wi-Fi. Oh my God, the amount of battery you would need for this. So it was just insane. However, these guys all got bought and they got transferred into Google. Right? And so it's likely, because now they've gone quiet, but it's likely that Android Wear is based on what the work that these folks did. It was very cool, and it was mainly as a developer device. Sony then comes along and says, well, we're going to have a smartwatch. Smartwatch 1, not so good, didn't sell. Smartwatch 2 had apps, had a music player, Bluetooth Classic to pair with your phone. You could get notifications, it talked to Android. It was a little bit of thing. And that didn't sell. So Smartwatch 3 came out, and so this is a long, long time ago. It's 2012. So, and it still didn't sell. So, you know, some. It depends, I guess, on your definition of sales. So then they MetaWatch. MetaWatch were all those ex-Fossil guys that had the Palm experience, and they said, well, let's build something that is for developers, and you can hook up. And the big thing about this was it had all those buttons, right? So you could have lots of things. And notification became the killer app for watches at this point, okay? So your phone's in your pocket, and you're gonna miss a call, and then buzz, 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 there it is, it shows up on your wrist. So keep that in mind, because that's gonna be one of the big things with the Apple Watch as well, except rich notifications. So if Apple hasn't completely hoovered up all the functionality there, there's a good opportunity for people to jump in. And I've been asking people the people who wear these smartwatches, what their main use for these watches are. And notification is hands down #1 application, right? So one other thing is that it paired also with both iOS and Android, which is quite an accomplishment. And then came Pebble, the first one here. Pebble is awesome. They got on Kickstarter. They broke all records on Kickstarter for fundraising. They only asked for 100,000. They came off with $10 million, and they still ran out of money. This is how expensive it is to make a good watch, right? And so they finally, after lots of delays, they came out with these watches that you see here, which are still out there. Right? And Tim's wearing one. So the thing about Pebble was, they said, look, we don't want fancy screens. We don't want, you know, OLED displays and color and all that. So they used this e-paper display, which was very battery efficient, and it would shut down. Good thing to look at during the day. At night, not so good. You have to shake to light up the backlight. But the battery still lasts 5 days, easily. This thing is amazing, right? You could download and build custom apps for it. After a while, they did the Apple thing and they waited a year before releasing the SDK. So now you can do sort of this pseudo C language thing that you can write apps and you can shoot it up via your phone into the watch. They have an app store, very nice, and you can upload. Watch faces is big in that universe. So another area, I'll get to that, that is very popular for watches is creating custom watch faces. And one of the first things I can tell you, if any of you want to do development work, one of the first things that every watch interface people build is a watchmaking kit for dummies. Basically, a watch face is a background, it's got the dials or digits, and it's got a few extra widgets on it, and you can have someone upload these images, right? Save it into a little bundle, send it up to the watch face runner, and you got yourself a watch kit. A watch face building toolkit. And if you want to find out what people have done, go on any of these platforms and you'll see. The watch face builder thing is like #1 with a bullet. Okay, so that's always a cool thing to go after. Another cool thing was that you could do music control, which you also can with the Apple Watch, right? And it had Bluetooth Classic for the notifications, right? And it had Bluetooth LE. This was sort of an afterthought for them. They said if you reach, I think it was like $200,000, we'll enable, on Kickstarter, they said we want 100,000. If we reach 200,000, we'll enable LE. And I was like, 2 minutes later, they had $200,000. Shot right through. So it does have Bluetooth LE, which now they're using for ANCS, right? So they're getting notifications, and if your Pebble isn't doing notifications so well nowadays, you can blame ANCS and LE, because it's really very complex. It has an accelerometer, so you can do all kinds of cool things with it. And it gets a little vibration motor, not very controllable, but still, you get a buzz when something comes in. So these have been around.
What do you think makes the Pebble a big success? Because of the battery?
The battery life is huge, okay? And the fact that you can get custom watch faces, it's really easy. They came out with a little app store, you can download. And the price is good. Okay. For $150, and then now it's down, the regular Pebble is down to 100, right? And so the price is really good, right? They've got a steel version, which is much more stylish. They are working on their next generation, now probably a lot harder that Apple's announced these things. But I don't think they're gonna go into Crazyville with lots of bells and whistles. I think they know to restrain it. That battery life is their calling card. That trumps all, And to think about it, you have a watch. What's the primary function of a watch? It's to tell time, right? So by 3 p.m., if your watch has run out of battery, and it's just a slap on your wrist for the rest of the night, come on, So whoever's making these watches, including Apple, I hope, should reserve 5% of their energy on the battery, and then just keep the watch going. Shut everything else down. Just keep it going, so at least I don't feel like an idiot at 7 o'clock at night. Right. So Samsung came up next with this weird watch that was first Android custom, and it was their own thing, and everybody's hated it because it wasn't really Android Wear. It was like their own version of Android. And then they said, screw that, we're going to have Tizen on it, which was even worse, right? And they had a Tizen developer conference that they were giving away these things for free, and people still didn't want them. So but the cool thing about these things is that Samsung watches have always had voice control. So they had voice control of the watch baked in since day one. Those guys really focused on that. The other crazy thing about this thing that it actually had a camera in the watch band. I don't have one of them, but they put like here, and you could take video and all kinds of crazy, right? And so the problem with that was that you couldn't then have a custom watch band because you'd lose your camera. And also kind of creepy, like sitting there going like this, right? You thought Google Glass was bad. This is like, whoa. And the last thing was it only paired with Samsung phones. That was like how to shoot yourself in the foot. After that, since then, we've had a series of watches with pretty much identical features with a few tweaks. Martian was one. It's popular with people who like to have a little bit of analog and a little bit of digital, right? So it's got the top part is analog, and you can sort of have a classic watch, and the bottom gives you notifications and you can talk to it and do some of that kind of stuff. It's a pretty cool watch if you like that kind of thing. And they're still going. They're a going concern. Oops. Too far. Basis now, that's an interesting, it's really a health tracker, right? It's got heart rate, step, sleep, skin temperature, all kinds of stuff, right? In a supremely ugly watch, clunky interface, right? But it's a health tracker. It's like, you know, Fitbit on steroids. And it did iOS and Android, and it had all kinds of cool things. You can chart your health to the nth degree. And then Intel bought them just this year. And they've got a new one coming out, but I still don't know why Intel bought them. They want it to be in the wearable business, I guess. But they're cool. They're very cool. If the you know, Apple Watch thing doesn't work out for you guys, if your primary function is tracking your health, the Basis watches are pretty cool. And then came Android Wear, where they pre-announced it because they wanted to get the word out before WWDC that these things exist, but they never shipped. So, but eventually they did. And I have 2 examples here. And they're pretty cool, except the battery runs out about 3 or 4 p.m. if you start in the morning, right? And so, but what's so cool is writing apps for them is really easy because there's the same Java language that you write for Android, and you just squirt it right up. Another cool thing about it is, I'm not sure if it's cool, but in order to install a watch app, you need to have a companion phone app, and it's embedded inside it. Kind of like keyboards on iOS, right? You need to have a host app where this thing then squirts up and installs on your phone. So they've baked into it the presumption that you're always going to be tethered, or at least have a tethered portion on the phone. So we'll see how Apple Watch turns out, whether they're going to do it untethered or they're going to require you to have a phone app as well. And of course, only paired with Android. And then this crazy watch, this IAM Pulse watch, where will.i.am, of Black Eyed Peas fame, was going around for months and months and months, and he was like sort of teasing these things, and it's a bracelet, it's pretty thick and clunky, and finally he came out, and he announced it during Dreamforce, right? So during the Salesforce conference, of all places, to appeal to the Salesforce, you know, population. Very strange, right? But it had Wi-Fi, it had Bluetooth, it had GPS, a pedometer, and all that. And the only reason I put this up is because, God, I just love this headline. I really feel bad for him, but this I'm framing this for, you know, you just can't get any worse than this. And like, you know, dozens of engineers worked on this for like 3 years, right? It's obviously a very, very deep tech product, but holy moly. So, other phones or watches to watch. I just put the list, and you know, I'll put this on SlideShare. But basically, they all do the same thing, right? Microsoft Band is being a notable exception. It just came out, and this thing is just loaded with, it's not a watch, it's a fitness band. But it has so many sensors in it that just blows my mind. And it's GPS, so the GPS is actually one of the things. If you're gonna exercise, most people who run or bike like to take their phone with them for the GPS tracking. So go into Strava or, you know, Runkeeper, and it shows you your, the route you took and all that. You can't do that just with a watch. You just, if it doesn't have a GPS. So Garmin has made great business by having a GPS watch which records your track. And then later you sync it with your phone or your desktop, and it gives you the map. And they have heart rate monitors and things like that. Most of them, the other ones though, are pretty much similar, very similar. And there's even more, and really cool stuff. And even HP's gotten into the game with this very stylish, high-end watch, the MB Chrono Wing. And oh god, there's just so many of them out there. I really urge you, if you want to go and Google each of these names, and you'll be amazed. Some of them are the gamut from tracking to health to GPS to multimedia to will.i.am. That's the best one. So, and then we got this coming, right? And
in the sort of trend of if you put all of these things end to end, and you put Apple Watch in there are very interesting features that they decided to load. I mean, it's like, where do you stop? You know, you can load things. Why didn't they put a GPS in it? You think maybe because of the battery life, but other people have put GPSs in there, in their watches. That's all there. The health tracking. Well, okay, others have it. Will Apple Watch end up doing what the iPhone did for phones? Remains to be seen, because there's obviously this long history of watches that we've had. You know, I've shown you just a snippet of it. And the features are there. But the same was true for iPhone. A lot of these things were there before, and the iPhone comes along and just sort of smushes them together and simplifies them and makes them nice, and boom, you know, that's why we're here. So, remains to be seen. I don't know. You know, I have my questions and doubts, but we'll see if it becomes a hit. And I wouldn't just judge it by Rev 1, because, you know, as with Apple, anything Rev 2 is better. So, just wait for it. The one thing, the NFC Apple Pay thing, is very intriguing, and I have questions of security. I'm really curious about how they're doing it, because with the iPhone 6, at the point of transaction, you have to put your thumbprint, and then that transaction is authenticated, basically. With a watch, the way they've demoed it is you just wave the thing, and there is no thumbprint scanner, as far as I know, right? So there is, you only do it at the point where you say, okay, squirt my thumbprint up to this device. I'm wondering how that's done. But it's going to be iOS only, obviously, and you're going to have so much variety of bands and faces and shapes and colors and prices and all that kind of stuff. So the real question you should ask yourself is, what are these smartwatches good for? A lot of you here aren't wearing watches because you use your phone, right? But some of these, notification seems to be the main thing. And you put your phone in your pocket and you miss stuff. You get this sort of vibration. Women who carry purses put it in their purses and they miss stuff, right? And so the question is, that notification, is that worth having a watch with you, right? Health and fitness, there are health and fitness bands. There's tons of them around. You can have a watch on this hand and a Microsoft band on this hand, and do all the cool stuff, right? Apple has chosen to integrate certain types of sensors, right? And there's a clever thing that I don't know if they're going to do, but some people have tried, which is try to use the accelerometer to determine patterns of movement. So if you're developing apps, and Apple hasn't done it, you should think about it, where they can tell from the accelerometer what kind of activity you're engaged in by looking for the patterns. So you can do sort of rich pattern magic. Media playback and control, I think it's going to be baked in, but in watches, that seems to be a good thing that people like. They have the phone in their pocket, they have their headphones in, this song sucks, and they go beep, and then or pause, to talk to someone, and they don't have to whip the thing out and tear off their headphone jack. In the standalone apps and games are going to be big. A lot of people are building those, but the problem you're going to hit is the UI is completely different than the phone. It's very minimal. You may not have as beefy a GPU to do real games with. You may do, Pong, maybe, something fun. Slappy Bird, that's going to be perfect for that. Sports, I think, is going to be another area, because I think there was a mention of it. You do have an accelerometer. If there's a good gyro and we have access to it, with the phone, the problem is if you're like, playing tennis and you have a phone in your hand, it just doesn't, you can't track their movement. So they have to put something on the device. But with a watch, you can. With golf, baseball, swimming, all this kind of cool stuff. So there's an opportunity there. And then the watches that do have GPS. People do like having the GPSs because they don't have to carry their phone with them, right? So some of the differences, things to look out for. Watches, some of them require to be tethered. Some of them can operate standalone. You can leave your phone and then go take it out and then come back and sync up, and that's kind of a neat feature. What kind of connectivity? The Apple Watch doesn't have GSM, GPS, or Wi-Fi, I think, to their credit, because those things will suck down your battery. They are going to have an app store. It remains to be seen whether it's the same as the, if it's going to be Mac App Store, iOS App Store, and Watch App Store, or it's going to be all smushed in together sometime. Access to the internet is actually a pretty big deal. None of these watches give you direct access to the internet.
They all proxy through your phone, right? And some of them make it easy. The Pebble Watch actually gives you a JavaScript. You can write some JavaScript that runs on the phone, which you can invoke from the watch and then get the result back. So there's this little proxy step. It's actually pretty cool. You can go out and get like scores and then have it send out the data to the watch and display it. Android gives you this weird sort of key value exchange thing, but they don't give you direct access to the internet. You have to kind of write your own thing. And if they have Bluetooth LE, Bluetooth LE is like very small, 20 bytes at a time, so you can't send any multimedia between them. From what I've seen, I'm going to guess that they do have classic Bluetooth between the Apple Watch, but the question is whether they allow access to it. On the phone today, they don't, because you need to be MFI certified to get access to the classic Bluetooth, which is the heavy, you can pass a lot of data. So we'll see how they do that. Another question is also, types of sensors, whether you can talk to the camera, heart rate, and if you're looking at different watches, also consider, do you want it to be cross-platform, and whether they have storage and how easy it is. Some of them are really hard. You got to go learn a completely different programming language. Some of them, I assume the Apple Watch would be one of the easier ones. And some of the issues, I'll zip through these, is if what happens if the phone's not near? If you're writing an app and the phone's in the other room, you're out of connection, can your app continue functioning? Things to think about. Local storage, queuing things up, syncing, all that kind of cool stuff. Battery life, background processing is going to be huge. A lot of the ideas I heard presume background processing. We haven't had decent background processing on iOS since day one. It's still kind of flaky. They're doing the best they can because of the battery life. But the kind of thing where you can just create a background service and forget about it, we still can't do. Low battery behavior, like I said, if they go black, they're going to hear from me. Security is another thing. How much secure storage? The keychain. Apple has a decent keychain. Synced up is going to be the question. And whether you need to do authentication. If your site or app requires login, how are you going to enter your password on the screen? Maybe the big keyboard or on keyboard will be needed. One question I have about the Apple Watch is the fact that it's luxury watches are heirloom pieces. You spend thousands of dollars on a Rolex because you're going to have it for the rest of your life, and you're going to pass it down to your kids. A watch that is going to get replaced every couple years, is that an heirloom piece or is that a piece of tech? That's one of the things that I don't know yet until we see the results from the sales. And some opportunities, real quick, I'll wind down, is watch faces. Like I said, everybody's going to want watch faces. And license the media. Remember, if you're going to use Mickey Mouse, be very careful. You'll get pulled. Standalone apps. If there's local storage and local processing, you're going to be able to do it. You got a lot of cool things with tapping and touching in the crown and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be able to do interesting games, of course. If you're bored sitting and waiting for Bart to show up, you can pull out your phone, or you can just sit there and go dippity dap. So those are going to be great. Custom app notifications, if we're allowed. Again, depends. But because notification is such a big part of Watch World, I think that's going to be key. These all have Bluetooth LE, right? Some of them are exposed, some of them are not. None of them are peripheral mode, for those of you who are core Bluetooth mavens. They're all central, so they can only pick up other devices. But consider the fact that since they have VLE, right, you could talk to devices directly, or other phones, or sensors, or all kinds of cool things. So I think that's an interesting. Health tracking, of course, and with health tracking, one of the interesting things I think is going to be synthesized sensors. So more than one. Instead of just having heart rate, it could be heart rate plus pedometer, plus this, plus this. So you can come up with clever ideas of things to put together, synthesize. And maybe something that you wear, because it has BLE, you can synthesize that together and get something better than just the watch itself. Event display, going to the internet. We don't know how easy it's going to be to go to the internet, but hopefully they will have made it easy. Data exchange and social networking. This stuff, Twitter, this, that, whether it's one-way, read-only or not. And then commerce. I would be very amazed if they opened up Apple Pay on the first run to us for developers, but if they did, it'd be awesome. So, and then the advanced ones, these are things that, the previous one was things that people do today. These are things that I'm just going to throw out for you. This is my Next to last slide, it's synthesizing sensors. Multi-user apps, I think, are going to be cool. Things that if more than one person has a watch, you can sort of do things and interact with each other, games maybe, or just whatever. Since there's BLE, maybe cross-platform. Proximity-based, iBeacon, right? Pick stuff up. Problem with iBeacon is that just picking up the beacon isn't good enough. You need to actually bring in the data and the context, and so that goes into whether you can access the internet or not. So, which means you need to have your phone in your pocket. Safety and security. Help, I've fallen down, I can't get up. And this thing goes, 911, bring them over. So there are people making wearables for that. So WatchKit do that. Presence, which has to do with beacons, with other people. You know, I've entered the store, I've walked out of the store, that kind of stuff. More interesting media player, talk to Sonos, talk to, you know, various another, you know, movie players, projectors. Home integration, I think, is going to be big. Right now, you have to go through the phone. It's going to be LE. Maybe you can talk directly to your home. Turn on lights if you don't have to carry your phone around with you. Automotive. Lots of stuff going on in the automotive world, and a lot of them are BLE. So again, cool things. And looking information up. Wikipedia on your wrist. Now, how awesome is that? Right? You got voice control too, so you can, I mean, they'll give you that through Siri, but to heck with that, I just want to read that tiny font. It's going to be awesome. And porn! Every platform. Its success has relied on porn. Don't discount that. Vibration engine in there. You've got sensors. You've got heart rate. Come on, think big. So, my wife's going to kill me for putting that last one. So the big question is which platform to build for. And I think if you're here, you probably are way interested in this watch thing from this company down the road here. But really, there's a lot of options, right? And if you do cross-platform, you'll be a special snowflake because you'll be able to build things for every platform that covers everybody, which is kind of cool. So here's some reading. These blogs cover watches. They are very detailed. If you are interested in watches, I suggest you, subscribe to them. And that's all I have. Any questions? Thanks, question.
Any
questions? I'm sorry. I'll take a couple
questions while we switch.
I want to give. Go ahead.
So given the Apple Watch is going to be Objective-C or Swift, how viable is cross-platform development?
I don't think, I'm not a big believer in one tool for everything. I think you're going to have to write functionally cross-platform. So having things like, mono, Xamarin, might be an option, but I'm sure they're thinking about it. But HTML is definitely not in the works for at least the other watches, I can tell you that.
Did Apple Watch at least the water resistant or waterproof?
Water resistant? I think it is.
Water resistant, yes.
Yeah, not waterproof. Okay. Go ahead.
Do you have space on risk for Apple Watch?
Sorry?
Do you have space on risk for Apple Watch?
I will. I've got another one free. And I'm going to start with a cheap one and move my seat. Go ahead.
First of all, big attaboy for this presentation. Very, very nice, comprehensive.
Thank you.
And regarding the water resistantness or waterproof, can you comment on the other watches?
The Pebble is waterproof, but not like diving waterproof. You can take showers with it. The Android watches are water resistant-ish, but they do not have any buttons on them. So they've got nothing, if they're sealed, and actually not having a button is kind of a problem. Actually the 360 does, it's just a push button thing, but this, the LG one doesn't. So they are water resistant, but they're not waterproof, the Android watches. But Pebble is, but they don't, you can take it swimming.
And the Basis?
The Basis too, yes. Basis is waterproof. Yes. All right? Cool. Thank you.
Right, so we're fortunate tonight to have the two people at Coursera who do all the work. This is interns, Brandon Tran and Michelle Wong. Yes.
Brandon.
And the talk that we're going to be giving today is called Under the Hood of Scalable Apps. So the things that we're going to be talking about aren't necessarily things that the user actually gets to interact with or even see, but are things that are very vital in building a great product and helping us ship fast. So a little bit about ourselves. So we're both engineering students from the University of Waterloo, so that's in Canada. We're here on a 4-month internship program. We just completed a little over 3 months. So the things we're going to be talking about are the things that we worked on during our internship. So we're both on the mobile team. Brandon does iOS, like Tim said, and I do Android. So a little bit about Coursera. Coursera is an education technology company that was founded a little under 3 years ago with the mission of providing universal access to the world's best education. So this is done by working with different partners to provide free online courses for anyone with an internet connection. So as of today, we have over 115 different partners, 857 different types of courses, and over 10 million learners who've used our platform. So this map here shows where our learners are concentrated all over the world. So here are some screenshots of our current iOS app, both on iPhone and iPad. It's a pretty interesting time to be working on the mobile team at Coursera, since as more and more people start having access to different types of devices and tablets, people start to transition from consuming content on the web to using our mobile apps. This creates a lot of different challenges as we try to scale the team up. So some history on our original iOS app. We began development of our app in 2013, and we launched our first iteration at the end of last year. So at that time, we only really had 2 mobile engineers. We weren't really considering anything to do with growth. All we really wanted to do was to ship a product. We weren't really considering whether or not we were writing good code that we wanted to use 6 to 8 months down the road. So when it came to things like scaling up, we were like, nah, just ship it. But as our team grew bigger and bigger, and as we started to develop more and more features, we had more things to consider. What if we wanted to build a certain feature X, Y, or Z? How would we make these things work together? What about things like measuring growth as we gain more and more users? How about things like testing? How would we make sure that the individual components that we were writing were easily testable? These were all things that we had to consider.
Okay, so that being said, our team has grown, and with that, we have to develop some new methodologies so that we can iterate fast. And one of the things that we're really excited about is that all the new code that we write in dynamic frameworks, which is an iOS 8 feature, and we're also using Swift. So right now that's integrating with some of our legacy code, and we're bit by bit trying to rewrite the entire app. And something else that we're trying to focus on this quarter is our mobile event tracking, because I saw this on Twitter actually, and 86% of time on phones is spent using apps, 14% is spent browsing. So it's very important that we're able to track what our learners are doing when they're interacting with our app, especially with Coursera being a data-driven company. So we have this notion of feature modules now, and what that means is that you would divide your iOS and Android teams into feature teams. So Team A would be responsible for, say, the video player of the app. Team B would be responsible for the login functionality. And the way we do this is we have feature branches, and we want to merge opt into master. Eventually, we want to get to a release train model in which the train leaves for the App Store every 2 to 3 weeks. And that begs the question, what about integrating large features that may span several days? Well, in that case, you'll get into a stale feature branch, and you'll have something like this, you know, when you try to rebase or merge into Git, right? You have conflicts, and you're going to spend a lot of time fixing them, and that doesn't make for a very happy development team. So, can we do better? One of the ways that we're thinking is like, okay, if maybe your interface is done, but the implementation is not finished, so comment it out and put it in. But that's not great for code reviews, and it builds technical debt. So we considered, what if there's a way that we could, on demand, enable and disable features that we have, so that we can test them on our own internally. and then make sure they're correct before pushing them to the App Store. Something like this. That would look a bit better. Notice that the previously commented code is now wrapped up in a nice if statement. And this is where our solution is. So we spent a few bit of time to create the Coursera debug tools, and it's a client-side debug suite for internal use only. This is what it looks like. It currently supports 3 functionalities, feature switches, or we more informally know them as tweaks, where we can enable and disable features. That's what the UI looks like on the left. When we dog food our app, we also need a way for our internal users to report a bug, and that's the feature on the right there. You can email the mobile team, or you can save it to your photos and come bug us during the day. And a concern with building an internal tool is how do we make sure that it's truly internal only and it doesn't leak out to any of the end users, because it would not be so great if someone downloaded the app from the App Store and played around with some hidden features that are under wraps by NDA. So we had our infrastructure team build us an employee verification API that we hook into. And so when you sign into the app, you need to be a verified Coursera employee by your email. And then some of the ways that you can use to bring up the screen is via hooking into volume key, having an overlay icon similar to the Facebook chat head, or you can use some sort of super cool secret gesture. I personally like to do the Konami code. It looks something like that. And then you get the new menu. So how would you implement this in your working app? Well, I did some research, and there's some pretty nice open source libraries that you can use. We are currently leveraging FB Tweaks, released by Facebook, to supplement the tweaks, feature switches, behavior. You can also write your own, and it just uses NS user defaults. As for remote libraries, I did some, there's Ground Control by Matt Thompson, who wrote AF Networking, and that uses a property list. There's also Rollout.io, which is a relatively new solution, and it has a web client where you can dynamically push changes to your production code. And it's really cool. It uses method swizzling. What are some of the challenges that we came across when trying to build this debug suite? First is we need to make sure that the interface is usable, because eventually when we scale to 10, 20, 30 developers, we want all feature teams to be able to put this tool into any of the feature modules that they're developing. So we want a single point of initialization and some customizable logging. The activation method posed a problem initially, but once we got help from the infrastructure team, we decided on having that verification API along with an overlay icon, and changing the app state at runtime. Currently, you can, because we're leveraging FB Tweaks, you can use a bind function that will dynamically modify your runtime if you enable and disable features.
Okay. So one of the other questions we posed at the beginning of the talk was how to measure growth. So growth in terms of learners as well as the number of users of our application. So the way that we thought about doing this was to have event tracking throughout our application. So whenever a product team develops a new feature, let's say a video module or a quiz module, we have our analytics team spec out a certain set of events that they think might be interesting to track when the users use our application. So whenever the user interacts with the application in a certain way, an event is fired, and this event is passed through our eventing platform to be stored in a database. After all the events have been tracked, our analytics team retrieves the data and processes it in a way such that it's meaningful for our partners and engineering teams to use. So what partners do with the data is that this data provides them with a way of understanding how learners use their content. They can use this information to better develop lectures and quizzes. So for example, what is the best way to pose a question such that the most amount of users are able to answer it correctly? Our product teams also use this information to help quickly iterate and improve on our existing applications. So here's an example of our video module, probably one of the most important components in our application. So one thing that might be really interesting to track is how often or frequent is the pause button clicked? So whenever the user clicks on the button, an event is fired, so the pause clicked event. And along with this event are certain properties that we think might be interesting to track. So things like video ID, video time, playback speed, subtitle language, as well as volume. And for each event that's fired by the application, metadata to uniquely track that event are also attached. So things like timestamp and the version of the OS that the user is running on. So the analytics team specs out this kind of event name as well as properties for every feature that the user can interact with. So once we have all this data, dashboards are made so that our partners can easily analyze the way that learners are using their content. So for example, here's a screenshot of one of the courses that we provide, and it shows how learners use the videos within that course. So having event tracking not only shows information specific to a course, but it also shows how mobile is doing as an entire platform. So for example, of all the videos that are watched on Coursera, 26% of these videos are watched on the iOS application. Combined with Android's 14%, mobile makes up about 6.5 million views in the last 30 days. So since eventing is such an important feature in our application, we needed a way to easily test that the correct events were being fired, as well as the correct properties being recorded. So we created something called the debug X-ray, which is basically a translucent overlay on top of the application. And while the user is interacting with the application, they can quickly see the current events that they're triggering, as well as the values that are being stored. So in order to test that the correct information is being sent, we also have it so that you can easily email these logs or upload them to Google Drive. This is an internal only use tool, so this might be a really good example of something that you might want to be able to turn on and off in the tweaks menu, which Brandon talked about earlier on.
So how did we actually go about creating that debug X-ray? Essentially, what it is that we have a log file, and if you ever come from other programming language dealing with file I/O, you'd understand the concept of file descriptors. And so what we have is we have a URL to the file, we create a file descriptor, and we use what's called dispatch sources. And so in here we have the initialization code for a dispatch source, and we need to pass it the dispatch vnode write flag, so that we're only listening to write operations on that file. And we need to make sure that we set what do we want to happen when a write occurs. In this case, it's get the contents of what was just logged and print it to that debug X-ray, the debug overlay. And some other steps that we need to take to make sure this dispatch source works correctly is we need to set the cancel handler. So what happens when that file is closed, deleted, anything happens to it, we need to make sure we account for that. And then the final thing we need to do is we need to resume the dispatch source using the dispatch resume function. We encounter some challenges when trying to revamp our analytics platform, one of which is because it's a cross-team effort, it requires very tight communication between the analytics, front-end, Android, and iOS teams. At the same time, it's both interesting to work with people I've never worked with before, but we need to make sure to keep up-to-date docs and constant communication so that we're never implementing something that we have to change later. We need to make sure that this eventing behavior, this eventing logic is very crash-free because the user doesn't interact with it, and it would be really sucky if the app were to crash because of this. And so by wrapping it in a tweak, we're able to, if it's a serious problem, we can push a hotfix with the tweak disabled while we work on it on our own time. Because the overhead to the App Store is one that's not so convenient for mobile developers. And we want it to be mobile agnostic, module agnostic. So given we're using a Viper architecture now, and so we just import the logging behavior into our foundation, which gets built as a dependency for any other feature modules that we write. So some of the main takeaways of this talk is chances are if you're here, you have a great app that's in production or in market. And we just want to make our point that if you want the app to, if you want to scale your team, it's important to consider these under the hood features such as feature flagging. And if you want to scale your user growth, it's important to have analytics tracking. As we said before, 40% of all our video views is from mobile. So that's very important data for us to make product decisions and give better data to our partners. So with that, I'd like to end by saying you can find us on the App Store. Just search up Coursera on iTunes or the App Store. And if you'd like to discuss with us, we're wearing these very nice mobile sweatshirts. Some of the team members are in the audience right now. If you'd like to speak with us about what the kinds we're working on, some of our design methodologies, come find us after. Thank you. Are there any questions right now? Yeah.
I was just curious what you're using for the event platform.
We have our own, the question was, what are we using for our eventing platform? In the past, we've used Mixpanel, a generic eventing offering, but we also, as time moved on, we developed our own in-house eventing because we feel that for you to customize your product experience, you need to, you know best what you need to track. So initially, it's good to leverage something like Flurry or Mixpanel. But as your product grows, it's better to hire an analytics team and have them build their own platform. Yeah.
Just wondering, there are some tools already available like Selenium Droid or kind of mobile testing app. And why would you go spend time developing this kind of app when there is some open source already available?
Yeah, so
which you can do almost the same thing.
The question was, there's already mobile tools such as Selenium out there that would essentially make testing easier. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason why we created this feature flagging tool is just so that we can parallelize our developer workflow, and so that say if my coworker is working on something, I don't have to wait for him to push his code. Or say if something is taking a really long time, I can push just the interface and maybe like a beginning implementation, such that I can test it on my own before merging it in with everything else. So I mean, it would be good to have both in there, because I think